To ensure a safe and enjoyable experience for all our guests, please respect the following rule. Time is an illusion.
Time. It binds us and it frees us. Every action, thought, and decision we could possibly make drastically changes the world around us, and yet out of the infinite number of choices that we can make, each one is set in stone forever. But what if they didn't have to be? What if you could rewind and reset the present so that the past didn't have to happen? Well, it seems like someone already has, so today we're going to be covering the murky history, or rather histories, of Starr Park. I'm a Turnip. Today we're going to get to the bottom of this and below, and welcome to Sub-Zero. So let's start from the very, very beginning, sometime before or around the 1950s, where Starr Corp was first founded. Their full name is Chokusei Starr Corporation, and they make literally everything you can think of. Spaghetti, poison, skin lotion, you name it. But the most important part of all of this is their teams of scientists, which strive to make new innovations that they can profit from. Now, we don't know when it was created, or even who founded it, but the one thing we do know is that Starr Corp created Starr Park, which means they obviously had to be around before the park was built. But because most of the information given to us about the order of events is shady at best and non-existent at worst, we're instead going to have to give the general ranges of where these events could have taken place. For example, the very earliest date we're shown is all the way back in the 50s, and that's probably not even canon because this comes from the unfinished version of the website on Gamba's laptop, which was never meant to be seen by the public. In fact, the only thing we are certain of is that the investor video had to happen sometime in the 60s, judging by the plates on the website, which can also be seen in the film. However, it should be noted that the investor video was taken at the very end of the park's reign, because that's pretty much the entire point of the film. The park going out in a spectacular blaze of glory. And if you somehow need more evidence that the park was destroyed, just look at starpark.biz. Many of the items are burnt or damaged, with some even being found among rubble and debris. And considering all the evidence of the park being destroyed, you'd think that'd be the end of it. Case closed, we can all go home. But considering I'm making this video right now, we both know that's not the case. And we have two reasons to believe that Starr Park survived the initial catastrophes. The first reason is the map on starpark.biz, which shows us a spoon with soy sauce on it, which is pretty mundane as far as spoons go, but the key thing to note here is that the spoon has never been used, and that's because the sauce was put there intentionally. Look at the map. Someone is trying to show us where the fire burned, and we can clearly see that the fire didn't destroy the entire park. The second reason is this letter from the office of Starr Corp. See, while we don't know the exact year that the fire started, we do know the day, 10/10 or October 10th, shown on the penguin plush as well as the signal meter on the WKBRL radio equipment. It's not a coincidence that the stream turned to fire on the exact date those numbers were foreshadowing. And if we look at the date printed on the letter, what does it say? October 11th, the very next day after the fire started, sent to someone who refused to listen to the director and invest in Starr Park, urging them to reconsider. The message is clear, they're not dead yet. But frustratingly, after this point, the trail starts to run cold, both figuratively and literally. We know that the fire is put out by the sounds of dripping water, but as for when that happens is a mystery. I mean, the same sounds are repeated on loop for several months before the stream goes dark and changes into the voice that hears you, which almost certainly takes place in modern day, because while I've covered it before, WKBRL 3.0 almost definitely takes place within this building in Super City, which we know because of what the radio host tells us.
Your ears are of value to us. Keep them pointed at the big flashing radio tower, WKBRL.
Which I don't think is too far of a stretch to say she's referring to the one that is literally blinking WKBRL in Morse code, not to mention the more modern aesthetic of the radio station. But if we look at that literally, Starr Park goes from burning down in the 1960s to being totally fine and dandy several decades later, and all in the span of 10 months. I know this radio has some weird properties, but more than half a century going by in less than a year, I don't think time is supposed to work like that. And then to add on to the confusing mess, we were given the CCTV, which shows us Starr Park, but not the one we were shown before, no. This one is, ironically, totally normal, and yet it took what we thought we knew and spit on it. 8-bit coming alive twice, kids staying the same age for 30 years, the entire existence of the park being shifted from the 60s to the 90s, despite the gems and the chaos they bring still existing in the time before. And that's not even the half of it. All the disasters we've come to know have happened twice. Fires, we've seen them quite a few times. Radioactive objects that corrupt people's minds, more than once. Explosions, literally constantly happening. So what exactly is going on here? Why does history repeat itself? Last time, I tried to explain it as an alternate universe from the investor video, and I don't think that's wrong because of what we talked about in the last video of the series, but that's not the answer to our question per se. It's not the reason behind the inconsistencies, no. To find the actual answer, we have to go forwards. Past the CCTV and all the way to the voice that hears you, because it's here where we get to revisit this universe's rules of time travel. In Kairos' theory, he stated how Starr Park was stuck in a perpetual time loop, and how the same 24 hours repeat themselves day after day after day, all in an effort to control the chaos. And this is supported by what they've told us over and over, the catchphrase of Starr Park.
This is normal.
Or more specifically,
We already told you, this time is normal.
as in this timeline is normal. because the events are happening over and over in a loop. They aren't lying when they say that. They're not even trying to downplay the horrors and violence. This really is normal for them. But the CCTV isn't a time loop, and that's particularly interesting. We watch it with our own eyes as the days turn into weeks, and still the timeline doesn't reset. It's not the 24-hour loop we see in WKBRL, because this happens before that, and the reason why can all be answered with 3 simple words. Time anomaly detected. What is an anomaly? Something unexpected, something out of the ordinary, something not normal. Of course these inconsistencies are intended. It's literally calling itself out as an anomaly, in case you missed the 2 separate instances where they confirm the lore hasn't been retconned. However, this only opens up more questions. Why is it an anomaly? What makes it so different? How does one even cause a change in a timeline? And well, as per usual, the answer is right in front of us.
Time is an unalterable, indefinite, continued progression that apparently is irreversible through the past, the present, and into the future.
Time is irreversible? But remember, nothing that Kairos Tim says can be trusted. Again, let's look at what the CCTV shows us. The 1010 fires burning down the rides, the green gas being released into the park, and everything being shut down for good, which is the exact story that the investor video tells us. So what's the catch here? Well, I think that someone went messing with the past, and in doing so, completely changed the future. They wanted to rewrite history and change the course of time. I mean, again, the answers are told to us directly.
To ensure a safe and enjoyable experience for all our guests, please respect the following rule. The past should remain there.
And again.
Backwards is not a viable way forward.
I mean, if you could go back in time and prevent everything from going wrong in the first place, why wouldn't you? The explosion? It was stopped. The fires? Prevented. The nuclear gas leaks? Never even happened. All the awful events that would inevitably lead to Starr Park's destruction were all delayed. But not permanently. See, Starr Park is still Starr Park, and they're still just as crazy as before the timeline was reset. Look to the items scattered on Rick's desk, and you'll see classified documents which are, no doubt, filled to the brim with information about Starr Corp's scientific research. They knew about the virus, about the radiation, about everything, because it had already happened before, and it would happen again. The flow of time is not so easily stopped. The same events that were caused by the radioactive material corrupting their minds happened once more, and so did every disaster that originated from it, like Pandora's box being opened once again. The second origin of Starr Park, and the second death. As we're told from the description of the archived CCTV footage, the park was closed down, but the end is only the beginning of something new. It's here where we see Brawl Stars in its heyday. The gates are closed, the park is damaged beyond repair, and the madness continues on, over and over. I think Starr Corp realized that it was impossible to completely stop the destruction of the park, so instead, they embraced it, over and over. Another reason we know the loop in WKBRL takes place in current day is because of Draco's description. Quote, riding his inflatable dragon and setting off fireworks, Draco promises a show-stopping finale every night. Sound familiar? It's the fireworks disaster, which happens every single day at the end of every night on WKBRL, the voice that hears you. A disaster which is reset over and over, and it's even reiterated again by Kairos Tim in the same campaign.
This is normal. Dragons aren't weapons.
Starr Park was reset. Everything was around in an attempt to stop Starr Park's fate, but all their efforts were in vain, because Starr Park's evil is destiny. It is set in stone, and no matter how hard you try, it is inevitable. But we can go further. We can go a lot further, actually, because I don't think Starr Park was the one who wreaked havoc on the timeline. I don't think they were the one to cause the time anomaly. Nope, I think it was none other than Spewed. And I have proof. Let's think about this from a logical point of view. If Starr Corp was the one trying to reverse everything, why wouldn't they just reset the disasters that destroyed the park? Their goal is domination, right? So why would they reverse the event that turned them evil? Why would they make the park totally normal again? It doesn't make sense. If they were the ones who did it, they'd just stop the park from getting destroyed and go right on their merry way. Same idea with the rules. They are specifically telling us that no one should visit the past. Seems counterintuitive if they're the ones doing it. They'd be breaking their own rules. Rules which are put in place to keep people from rising up against them. People like Spewed. But the biggest piece of evidence in all of this, the final nail in the coffin, is a question we've asked before.
And now an hour of the only acceptable way to answer nosy questions like, where is Starr Park? And what happened to Jessie?
Let's review. If you missed this video, I drew attention to the similarities between Jessie and Belle. Both Jessie and Belle use a shock rifle that shoots blue electricity which bounces between enemies, which both have a wooden handle with a rubber band on its end. Both have round goggles that have 4 diagonal prongs protruding from each end. Both are welders that are interested in construction. Both have super intelligence, and both of them have the same motive: taking down Starr Park. And what better way to stop them than to nip it in the bud? To go back to the 1960s and prevent the disaster from ever happening. Think about it. Let's say that Jessie is around 10 years old when she goes back to the 60s. If around 60 years pass between that day and modern Brawl Stars, Jessie would now be more or less around 70 years old. A perfectly reasonable age for Belle Starr to be. And again, if the disasters from the investor video are the same ones to happen in the CCTV, just pushed back to a later date, then they should match up. So let's review. Green showdown gas, summoned by Spike. The 1010 fires, burn baby burn. But the giant boss bot, notably missing. And I think I know why. I believe that the next lore installment is going to be all about the robots. As Lavados289 points out, look to the Starr Park origin section in the catalog, and what do you find? Robots. Which may seem mundane, but that might as well be confirmation that they are integral to the overarching story of Starr Park. I mean, what does Jessie do? She builds robots. It's what the Junker family does. Nani was built by Pam after all, and her daughter does the same thing with her pet dog, Scrappy. And I think that as Jess grew up in this new timeline, she used her skills to work towards something better. She joined the robot factory to help design them. And you know how we know that? This picture of baby Colt. Which, side tangent here, it's only Colt. I know I said in the last theory I thought Colt and Sam might have been a similar story to Jessie/Belle, but I'm hereby striking that theory as wrong. A lot of my theories change as I write scripts, and if this theory does turn out to be right, then they would have used the same visual cues to communicate that these two are the same person, and these two are father and son. But while Belle and Jessie are similar, Colt and Sam are pretty distinct in personality, with one being bold and brave, and the other being... I mean, do I even have to say it? And while I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the scar, it's possible that it was left behind in the concept phase. But getting back to what we were originally talking about, we know Belle and Sam worked in the robot factory because of these robot blueprints. And while Sam did work at the factory, it seems like he was the one doing physical labor as a factory hand. But Belle, his partner, she's the brains behind the brawn, and is the perfect person to help design them. Heck, we even see her welding one for him to destroy in a training session. Of course, that's not to say he didn't have a hand in it though. The two did work together as a welder and assembly worker after all. In fact, he's probably the reason the melee bot has boxing gloves, the same ones we see here. And that also explains the name, Bronson, which is a reference to the famous boxer. But that life didn't last forever. I think something happened to the factory that would completely change their future. Something from Belle's past that she couldn't escape, no matter how hard she tried. You guessed it, the gems. The very same thing that gave her unbelievable talents would also come back to burn her world to the ground. Look at the robot factory again, and we see the robots are the ones dealing with the gems in present day, towing them across Frontier World, using them to power the Megapig machines, storing them deep within the vaults, and from the similar patterns of the environment, I'm pretty sure these are just extensions of the robot factory. I think the gems did what they do best and reanimated inanimate objects, bringing the bots to life and causing them to rebel. It made them violent, it made them evil, it made them bloodthirsty, which all led to Belle's tragic origin, the story of how the Gold Arm Gang got its name. But they weren't going to back down from that fight. It's not in their nature. Far from it, actually. That's why they took on a life of crime, robbing gems from the robots to sabotage the factories, all while trying desperately to find out what they were doing, what their goal was, and more importantly, how to stop them. But to their child, Colt, he didn't see it that way. All he saw were his parents robbing, stealing, and killing like remorseless psychopaths, rather than the imperfect heroes they were, and so he joined the side against them as a park ranger. There's no glory in being hated by everyone around you. Colt wants to be praised and revered as a hero, and Starr Park can make that dream come true. What better way to strike a blow to your enemies than to turn their own child against them? They felt betrayed, empty, like they were missing something. And so they tried to fill that void by making something new, a replacement, a repurposed robot, a ranger, just like their son. That's why the blueprints on StarPark.biz show him as a cowboy machine, and why we got this random inclusion of a Colt profile picture in the Robot Factory update. It was Colt 2.0, but it wasn't him, and it never could be, because they hated robots, until the right one came along. Pearl Starr, a cookie oven who not only warmed their hearts because of their cookies, but because she reminded Belle of someone she knew long ago, the droid that took care of her while her mom was away, Nani and Peep. Somewhere in her heart, she was reminded of the fond memories that robots are capable of kindness. And speaking of which, we still do have to ask the question, what's up with the robots? What's their goal? Why are they so hellbent on causing mayhem? And to be honest, I think we already know the answer to that too. Think back to the 8-bit minigame. Where else do we see the robots coming out from? That's right, the black holes, the portals to the other dimensions. These act as the gateways which allow Starr Park to access, quote, other worlds. And speaking of 8-bit, what's the thing he's told to think of on his meditation tape?
Breathe out.
Total world domination. The thing the robots are obsessed with. I mean, again, listen to the BossBot's voice lines.
Domination mode engaged. Danger, danger.
They sound like the classic sci-fi invaders, robots which are coming to take over the planet. Robots, which I should point out, originate from when the game was a space-themed mode. And that also explains why Riku is pretending to be a quote space bounty hunter. His voice lines are the same ones as the boss bot, because he's trying to mimic it.
Domination mode engaged. Danger, danger. Unleashing ultimate power. I will be back. Run away. Think of your future.
And I also think the word choice of bounty hunter is also very intentional here. Looking back to this post about where the concept artist Paul got his inspiration for Belle, it's implied one of the major characters she's based off of is Sarah Connors from the movie Terminator, a movie about a robot bounty hunter and a human rebel traveling back in time to change the past. And that explains why they're fighting us. I think Kairos was right all along. I think that the robots are learning from the Brawlers' attack patterns and getting stronger. That we are, accidentally, training an AI to take over the world. And there you have it. Jessie, with her newfound intelligence, traveled back in time to try and stop Starr Park from becoming corrupt. And it worked, but only for a while. The disasters were inevitable, and as she grew up, she fulfilled the role she was always meant to take, to destroy Starr Park once and for all. But she never got the chance. Starr Park, in an attempt to preserve themselves, placed the entire world into a time loop, to turn back time, to stop the fires, and that's where the story ends. For now, at least. But hopefully, sooner or later, we'll get the answers. And considering the Robot Factory was the same Brawl Talk where they mentioned the reworked robot PvE system and a story mode, I wouldn't be surprised if that was where the next stage of the story takes place. But then again, that's just speculation. And as always, thanks for watching, and make sure to have a day as bright as the stars.